Isn't it strange that humanity can gaze across hundreds of millions of kilometers to map the canyons of Mars with pinpoint accuracy, yet we remain almost completely blind to the world beneath our own feet? We like to think of ourselves as the masters of this planet, the explorers of every frontier, but that's a comforting illusion we tell ourselves on solid ground. The truth is, our planet is an ocean world, and over 80% of that ocean is a territory of perpetual night, an alien landscape more unknown to us than the surface of the moon. We have spent decades looking up at the stars for signs of life, all while floating on a cradle of absolute mystery. We have visually observed less than 1,000% of the deep seafloor, a shockingly tiny area from which we extrapolate everything we think we know. The Earth's greatest secrets don't lie in the cosmos. They are right here, submerged in a darkness we have never managed to conquer. For centuries, the deep ocean has been a one-sided battle, and we are losing. We send down our strongest machines, our marvels of engineering encased in titanium, only for the abyss to casually swat them aside. The pressure is a physical manifestation of rejection, an invisible force that grows with every meter until it can crush a military submarine like a soda can. Our attempts to see are met with impenetrable blackness, and our efforts to listen are met with a maddening silence as signals get swallowed whole. Every expedition is a gamble, a fleeting journey into a realm that actively wants us out. It's a place where the fundamental rules of our world seem to bend, where physics becomes a weapon pointed directly at us. Each failed probe and lost submersible is a reminder that we are not explorers here. We are intruders. This isn't just an empty, hostile void. It feels like a presence. It's in the stories of experienced sailors and hardened deep-sea researchers who speak of the break-off phenomenon, a profound, terrifying feeling of psychological detachment from the human world when suspended in the deep. They describe it as a weight not just on their vessel, but on their soul, a sense of being an unwelcome guest in a very, very old house. It's an environment so alien that it begins to rewrite our own psychology. The darkness feels less like an absence of light and more like a substance, a thick, watching cloak that conceals everything. You begin to wonder if the crushing pressure is not just a feature of physics, but a deliberate boundary, a wall meant to keep us out and keep something else in. And then there are the sounds. In 1997, our underwater microphones picked up a noise, a tremendously powerful, ultra-low frequency roar that rose from a remote corner of the Pacific. Dubbed the bloop, it was louder than any known animal on Earth, including the blue whale, and its acoustic profile didn't match any geological event we recognized. It sounded, for all the world, like something alive, something colossal waking from a long slumber. For years it remained a chilling anomaly, a voice from the abyss with no body attached. While it was eventually attributed to the cracking of an ice shelf, the ocean is full of such ghosts in the machine. Unexplained whistles, clicks, and pulses that appear and disappear without a source. Are these just technical glitches? Or are we eavesdropping on a conversation we were never meant to hear? The mystery only deepens when we find life where it has no right to be. We are taught that life needs sunlight, a source of energy to kickstart the food chain. Yet, in the food-starved abyssal plains, we find shockingly vibrant ecosystems teeming with creatures that look like they were designed by a horror artist. They thrive in total darkness, under impossible pressures, seemingly nourished by nothing. How can these oases of life flourish in a desert? Scientists talk about chemosynthesis and whale falls, but these explanations feel incomplete, like trying to explain a city's power grid by pointing to a single faulty generator. It challenges the very paradigms of deep-sea ecology, forcing us to consider that we're missing a fundamental piece of the puzzle about how life on our own planet works. This brings us to a far more unsettling possibility, a thought that keeps marine biologists awake at night. We operate under the assumption that we are the only advanced intelligence on this planet, the only ones building tools and observing the world around us. We search the deep with our clumsy, loud, and brightly lit machines, assuming whatever is down there is just primitive fauna, waiting to be discovered. But what if we have it backwards? What if the reason we see so little is because the truly advanced life in the deep is exceptionally good at staying hidden? It is an environment of perfect camouflage, and we might be the equivalent of a loud, bumbling tourist walking through a forest, oblivious to the silent predators watching from the trees. Consider the sheer arrogance of our position. We shine our little flashlights into a kingdom that has existed in darkness for hundreds of millions of years and expect its inhabitants to politely pose for a picture. What if something down there has been watching our world through the shimmering ceiling of the water for eons? Something that perceives our sonar pings not as scientific instruments, but as the clumsy tapping of a child on a cage. We search for monsters, but maybe, from another perspective, we are the monster. We are the loud, strange, and fragile visitors from a dangerously unstable world of light and air. The ocean's silence might not be emptiness. It could be patience. We have been humbled, baffled, and frankly terrified by the little we know. We are children standing at the edge of a dark, bottomless well, able to hear strange echoes from below but unable to see what's making them. But that is all about to change. For the first time in human history, we are on the verge of creating technologies that will not just visit the abyss, but inhabit it. We are building new eyes, new ears, and a new kind of presence that can withstand the crushing dark. The blindfold is coming off, and humanity is about to turn on the lights in the deepest, oldest room on the planet. The only question is, are we truly prepared to see what's been living in there with us all this time? So, how do we crack open a world that fights back against our presence? We stop trying to conquer it with brute force and start infecting it with intelligence. The future of marine biology isn't a billion-dollar submarine piloted by a brave crew. It is a cloud of sensors so small, so numerous, and so passive that the ocean doesn't even know they are there. Imagine smart dust. Thousands of tiny, autonomous microdrones, no larger than a jellyfish, released into the currents to drift like plankton. Instead of one loud, blinding spotlight cutting through the dark, we will have a million tiny eyes, a distributed hive mind drifting into the trenches, whispering data back to us in real time. We aren't just going to visit the deep sea anymore, we are going to saturate it. This isn't science fiction. It is the next logical step in biomimicry. Why build a metal tube when you can build a robot that swims like a tuna or drifts like a siphonophore? These drones will be transparent, soft, and silent, moving with the fluid grace of the things they are watching. They will use artificial muscles to undulating seamlessly, fooling the real inhabitants of the deep into accepting them as one of their own. For the first time, we won't be looking at marine life through a porthole in a state of panic. We will be swimming alongside it, seeing the ocean not as an intruder, but as a ghost. The sharks, the squids, the unknown leviathans, they won't flee because they won't know they are being watched. But as we deploy these swarms, something strange happens to our perception of nature. When you fill a trench with 10,000 autonomous robots communicating with each other, at what point does the ecosystem stop being wild? We are effectively building a digital nervous system for the ocean, turning the water itself into a machine. You can imagine the feed in a control room, a holographic, real-time 3D map of the Mariana Trench, pulsing with data points. Every predator, every prey, every shifting current is tagged, tracked, and predicted by an algorithm. It is a triumph of science, yes, but it is also the death of the unknown. We are stripping the ocean of its secrets, turning the last great wilderness into a managed server farm. And yet, there is a quiet horror in this perfection. Imagine watching that perfect, predictable feed when something wrong happens. Not a glitch in the software, but a ripple in the behavior of the swarm. Maybe a sector of drones in the Hadal Zone suddenly goes dark, one by one, silenced with terrifying efficiency. Or perhaps the swarm mind detects a massive, moving void, something that refuses to be mapped, something that absorbs sonar rather than reflecting it. We built these machines to be invisible, to blend in perfectly with the food chain. But what if they work too well? What if something down there identifies them not as metal and plastic, but as a new, strange kind of food? There is an uncanny valley effect that comes with watching nature through the eyes of a machine that thinks it's alive. These drones will have self-preservation protocols. They will fear predators to avoid destruction. Watching a school of robot fish scatter in terror from a passing shadow might feel authentically biological, until you remember it's just code executing a subroutine. But what if they react to something we can't see? What if the swarm starts avoiding a specific coordinate, giving it a wide berth for no logical reason. The algorithms might detect a threat that our human eyes, staring at screens thousands of miles away, simply cannot comprehend. The implications of this surveillance are chilling. We are creating a panopticon in a place where darkness was the only law. If we can see everything, we become responsible for everything. But more terrifyingly, we force a confrontation. The creatures of the deep have evolved for millions of years in a world of silence and shadow. Now we are filling their home with spies. We assume they are too primitive to notice, but intelligence takes many forms. A sperm whale sonar is far more sophisticated than our best military tech. Who is to say they won't see the electromagnetic hum of our drones? Who is to say they won't realize that the glowing jellyfish drifting next to them is a liar? This technology promises us the ultimate prize: total knowledge. We will finally see the giant squid hunting in the crushing dark. We will witness the mating dances of creatures that dissolve when brought to the surface. We will have a front row seat to the greatest show on Earth that has played to an empty theater for eons. But there is a voyeuristic creepiness to it, isn't there? We are the uninvited guests peering through the keyhole of a door that was locked for a reason. And as we stare deeper into the high-definition abyss, we might find that the abyss has been waiting for an audience. So the stage is set, the swarm is released, the data is flowing, and the map is being drawn. We have the eyes to see the monsters, but seeing them is one thing, understanding them is another. Because once we find these creatures, once we lock eyes with an intelligence that has evolved in a world of crushing pressure and eternal night, we are going to want to do more than just watch. We are going to want to talk. And that is where the real nightmare begins. If seeing the deep ocean is the first step, hearing it is the true revelation. For decades, we treated the sounds of the sea as mere background noise. The clicks, whistles, and moans were just biological static. But now, we are realizing that the ocean has been screaming at us in a language we were too deaf to hear. Enter Project SETI, the Cetacean Translation Initiative, a real-world scientific endeavor that sounds like it was ripped from the pages of a sci-fi novel. By deploying advanced machine learning and cryptography algorithms, the same kind we use to translate lost human languages, scientists are finally cracking the code of the sperm whale. These aren't just random noises. They are phonemes. We are finding syntax, grammar, and dialects. We are finding culture. Imagine an AI that listens to 1 billion clicks and suddenly, for the first time in history, spits out a translation. Recent studies have already shown that sperm whale codas contain structures eerily similar to human vowels and diphthongs. They have conversations that last for hours, exchanging information in a way that suggests a complexity rivaling our own. They have names for each other. They have distinct family traditions passed down through generations. This isn't just animal communication. This is civilization without buildings. And for the first time, we are on the verge of not just listening, but understanding what they are saying. But here is where the wonder turns into a shiver down your spine. What exactly have they been talking about for 30 million years? We arrogantly assume their conversations are primitive. Food here, danger there. But what if they are oral historians of a planet we barely know? Whales have brains larger than ours, with highly developed spindle neurons associated with emotional processing and social intelligence. They have watched continents drift, ice ages come and go, and species rise and fall. When we finally turn on that universal translator, we might not hear simple animal grunts. We might hear the epic poetry of the abyss, a detailed record of Earth's history that predates humanity by eons. And what if they are talking about us? They have been watching our wooden ships turn to steel, our harpoons turn to sonar, and our silence turn to the deafening roar of shipping lanes. If we crack their code, we might not like the reflection we see in the mirror they hold up. Do they see us as gods? As demons? Or simply as a plague of noisy, destructive children? The moment we understand them is the moment we lose the comfortable innocence of believing we are the only intelligent minds on Earth. We will have to look a sperm whale in the eye and acknowledge it not as a resource or a spectacle, but as a peer with a very long memory and plenty of reasons to hold a grudge. But the horror goes deeper than just awkward diplomacy. If there is a global network of communication happening beneath the waves, What else is on the line? Low-frequency sound waves can travel across entire oceans. A blue whale off the coast of Chile can theoretically be heard by another in the Indian Ocean. This suggests the possibility of a planetary-scale consciousness, a hive mind of information moving constantly through the deep. If we tap into this network, we might find that the ocean isn't just a collection of animals, but a single, connected entity that has been thinking, planning, and waiting while we played in the shallows. Consider the bloop again in this context. We dismissed it as ice cracking because it was too loud for biology as we know it. But if the ocean has a language, maybe that wasn't a creature roaring. Maybe it was a signal, a broadcast. If we start speaking back, if we use our AI to mimic their calls and say hello, are we prepared for who or what might answer? We are like toddlers playing with a ham radio, randomly broadcasting into the dark forest. We might get a friendly wave from a neighbor, or we might attract the attention of the wolf that has been sleeping quietly in the den. The most terrifying thing about translation is that it removes the barrier of ignorance. Once we know, we cannot unknow. If the whales tell us that the deep ocean is not empty, but occupied, that there are things in the trenches that they fear, things that rise only when the surface is silent, will we believe them? We are rushing towards this technology with the excitement of discovery, desperate to find alien intelligence in the stars, completely ignoring the fact that we share our planet with an alien intelligence that has been submerged in darkness for millions of years. We are about to break the seal on a silence that has lasted since the dawn of mankind. We are building the speakers and the microphones to facilitate the first interspecies conversation in history. It is the ultimate dream of marine biology and the ultimate gamble of our species. Because once the ocean starts speaking to us in a language we understand, we might realize that silence was the only thing keeping us safe. The deep sea has a voice, and it is about to clear its throat. If we can map the ocean and speak to its inhabitants, the next logical step is the most dangerous one of all. We try to fix it. We know the ocean is dying. Coral reefs are bleaching into skeletons, and entire food webs are unraveling in the warming water. But what if we didn't just try to stop the bleeding? What if we decided to rewrite the genetic code of the ocean itself? Enter the Lazarus gene concept. Scientists are already experimenting with supercorals bred to survive in boiling acid baths. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The real ambition is far darker and more godlike. De-extinction. We aren't just talking about saving the whales. We are talking about bringing back the ghosts that used to eat them. Imagine a future where we realize that the modern ocean is too fragile to survive us, so we decide to reseed it with the past. We turn to the fossil record, scraping DNA from ancient bones to resurrect species that haven't swum these waters for millions of years. Picture the stellar sea cow, a 10-ton gentle giant, reintroduced to graze on kelp forests that are choking the coastlines. Or, more terrifiedly, imagine us realizing we need a stronger apex predator to cull the exploding population of invasive jellyfish, so we print the genome of a pliosaur. We tell ourselves it's ecosystem restoration, but in reality, we are turning the ocean into a Jurassic Park without fences. This is where the dream of conservation bleeds into the nightmare of unintended consequences. Evolution is a slow, brutal architect. It takes millions of years to balance a predator and its prey. We are trying to do it in a decade with a CRISPR kit. When you introduce a species that was designed for a harsher, hotter, more violent epoch into our modern, fragile world, you aren't fixing the ecosystem. You are invading it. We might engineer a shark that is immune to pollutants, only to find that it is also immune to death, reproducing at a rate that strips the ocean clean of everything else. And it gets worse. We aren't just resurrecting, we are enhancing. To fight microplastics, we might design a synthetic bacteria that eats polymer chains. It sounds like a miracle cure until that bacteria mutates. What happens when the organism designed to eat plastic realizes that the carbon in a whale's skin, or a swimmer's wetsuit, isn't all that different? We could accidentally trigger a gray goo scenario underwater. A self-replicating biological sludge that doesn't stop eating until the ocean is nothing but a sterile, gelatinous soup. We wouldn't even see it coming until the first ships started reporting that the water itself was dissolving their hulls. The horror here is not a monster with teeth. It is a monster of efficiency. Nature is messy, chaotic, and beautiful. Bioengineering is precise, cold, and relentless. By trying to optimize marine biology, we risk creating organisms that are too perfect. Imagine a kelp forest that grows so fast it blocks out the sun for everything below it, creating vast dead zones of darkness. Imagine a resurrected predator that doesn't just eat to survive, but kills for sport because its ancient instincts are misfiring in a modern world that it doesn't recognize. We are playing with the source code of life in an environment we barely understand. It is the ultimate act of hubris. We look at the complex, weaving tapestry of the ocean and think, I can knit this better. But every time we pull a thread, something else unravels. We might cure the coral bleaching only to unleash a plague that targets the phytoplankton providing our oxygen. We are standing in a laboratory, holding a test tube that contains the potential salvation of the world, or its absolute doom, and we are just confident enough to pour it into the sea. The ocean has survived asteroids, ice ages, and volcanic apocalypses. It is resilient because it is wild. But the Lazarus gene represents a new kind of threat, a domesticated, weaponized biology. We are blurring the line between the natural world and a factory floor. In our desperation to save the ocean from ourselves, we might be transforming it into something that is no longer nature at all. A Frankenstein's monster of disparate parts, stitched together by human arrogance, alive but not quite right. So, as we stand on the deck of our research vessels, releasing these new, ancient things into the dark water, we have to ask ourselves, are we the saviors of the sea, or are we the mad scientists releasing the final plague? The ocean is about to get a lot more crowded, and for the first time in history, the monsters in the deep won't be myths. They will be our own creations, staring back at us with eyes we designed, waiting to see what we taste like. We have sent robots, we have sent signals, and we have sent monsters. But the final frontier of marine biology isn't about changing the ocean. It's about changing ourselves. For our entire history, the sea has been a place we visit inside armored bubbles, protected from a pressure that wants to crush us into a paste. But what if we popped the bubble? The future of deep-sea exploration isn't a better submarine. It is the Aquanaut 2.0. A human being biologically and technologically modified to step out of the airlock and walk on the abyssal plane. We are talking about liquid breathing technology, filling our lungs with oxygen-rich perfluorocarbons that make them incompressible, allowing us to dive deeper than any whale without our chests caving in. We are talking about artificial gills plugged directly into our bloodstreams, scrubbing CO2 and harvesting oxygen from the water like a fish. Imagine a research station located not on the coast, but 4,000 meters down, nestled against a hydrothermal vent. This isn't a cramped capsule for a weekend trip. It is a permanent colony. The scientists here don't commute to work. They wake up in the dark, eat in the dark, and work in the dark. They are the first generation of true abyssal citizens, living in modular habitats that look less like houses and more like organic growths on the seafloor. They harvest energy from the heat of the Earth itself, completely cut off from the solar cycle. The sun is just a rumor, a memory of a world they left behind. But biology is not just about lungs and blood. It is about the mind. And this is where the darkness begins to seep in. Psychologists warn of the break-off phenomenon, a dissociative state where divers feel a profound, almost spiritual detachment from humanity. Now imagine that feeling stretched over years. Living in a world of eternal night, surrounded by creatures that communicate in bioluminescent flashes, does something to the human psyche. The isolation of space is vast, but the isolation of the ocean is heavy. Presses in on you. In space, you look back at the Earth. In the deep sea, you can't even look back at the surface. You are buried alive, and after a while, you might stop fighting the feeling of being in a grave and start finding comfort in it. As years turn into decades, the colonists begin to change physically. Without the cues of day and night, their circadian rhythms drift and dissolve. Their skin pales, losing the melanin it no longer needs. Their bones, relieved of the constant fight against surface gravity, might become lighter, or perhaps denser to withstand the ambient pressure changes. We might see the emergence of a new subspecies of human, Homo aquaticus, people who are physically uncomfortable in the bright, low-pressure world above. They would be frail giants on land, gasping in the thin air, their eyes burning in the sunlight. The ocean wouldn't just be their home, it would be their biological necessity. And here lies the unsettling question. Would they still be us? A colony that relies on the ocean for heat, food, and air might eventually stop looking up. They might stop answering the emails from headquarters. They might develop their own culture, their own language, their own gods shaped by the terrifying geology of the vents. We send them down as scientists, but they might become something else entirely, a breakaway civilization hiding in the basement of the world. They would be the keepers of secrets they no longer wish to share with the surface dwellers who treat the ocean like a dumping ground. There is a specific kind of horror in the idea of a human face looking out from the black water, eyes wide and adapted to the dark, watching a surface ship pass overhead with no desire to be rescued. We assume that humans will always yearn for the sky, for the green grass and the wind. But the deep sea offers a different kind of freedom. A freedom from noise, from borders, from the chaos of modern society. It is a silent, weightless womb. The danger isn't that the ocean will kill the aquanauts. The danger is that it will seduce them. We talk about colonizing Mars as the ultimate backup for humanity, but the deep ocean offers a much closer, much stranger alternative. We could have cities glowing in the trenches, connected by submarine cables, trading with the surface but fundamentally separate from it. But unlike Mars, the ocean is alive. It interacts. The aquanauts wouldn't just be living on a rock. They would be living inside a complex, ancient, and possibly conscious biological system. They would be the first humans to truly integrate into the planetary organism, and in doing so, they would cross a line that can never be uncrossed. So, the final change technology brings to marine biology is not a new map or a new species or a new translation. It is a new reflection. We will look into the deep and see ourselves staring back, but the eyes will be different, older, darker, and filled with a cold, alien wisdom. We went down to study the monsters, and in the end, we realized the only way to survive in their world was to become one of them. The ocean doesn't just hide secrets, it keeps them. And soon, we might be one of the secrets it keeps. We started this journey by staring into a black box, terrified of what we couldn't see. We end it by tearing the lid off completely. If all these technologies come to pass, the drone swarms, the translation algorithms, the resurrection labs, the deep-sea colonies, we will have achieved the ultimate scientific dream, total transparency. The ocean, once the great chaotic subconscious of our planet, will become a spreadsheet. We will know the exact population of krill in the Antarctic. We will have a Google Earth view of every shipwreck in the Atlantic. We will have the genetic code of every creature from the surface to the Hadal Zone cataloged and backed up on a server. The mystery will be dead. The monsters will be tagged, tracked, and probably insured. But in our rush to illuminate the dark, we have to ask, what do we lose when the lights go on? A fully mapped ocean is no longer a wilderness. It is a garden. It is a managed resource, a predictable system where nothing is allowed to be truly wild anymore. The thrill of the unknown, the primal fear of the deep that has inspired sailors and storytellers for millennia, will evaporate. We will trade off for data. The ocean will cease to be a place where dragons might exist and become just another wet, salty factory floor where we farm algae and mine nodules, confident that we are the absolute masters of the domain. Or are we? There is a lingering, uncomfortable thought that persists even in the brightest future. The ocean covers 70% of this planet and reaches depths that defy comprehension. Even with 1 billion sensors, can we ever really control a system that vast? Perhaps the singularity of marine biology isn't technology. It's biology itself. Life is messy, adaptive, and stubbornly chaotic. We might build a perfect digital model of the ocean, only to find that the real ocean refuses to follow the rules. We might translate the whale songs only to realize they are speaking in a code that changes every day, specifically to keep us out. And then there is the ultimate horror, the possibility that we succeed too well. Imagine that we finally turn on the floodlights in the deepest trench, expecting to find rocks and slime, and instead we find something that defies physics. Something artificial, or something so biologically advanced that it makes us look like bacteria. The ocean has had billions of years to experiment with life while we were just climbing out of the trees. What if there are things down there, colossal, silent, ancient things, that have simply been waiting for us to get loud enough to be noticed? We often talk about the great filter in space, the reason we haven't found aliens yet. Maybe the great filter isn't in the sky. Maybe it's underwater. Maybe civilizations on Earth don't end by blowing themselves up. They end when they poke the sleeping giant in their own backyard. By forcing the ocean to reveal its secrets, we might be ringing a dinner bell we can't unring. We assume we are the apex predators because we have ships and satellites, but a swimmer always feels like a king until the shark decides to bite. So, how will future technologies change marine biology? They will destroy it. They will replace the biology of discovery with the engineering of control. They will turn the naturalist into a mechanic. But in doing so, they might reveal a final truth that sends us running back to the dry land, praying for the safety of ignorance. We are building a glass house in a neighborhood of stone throwers, and we are handing out the stones. Perhaps some places are meant to be dark. Perhaps the pressure and the cold are not barriers to be overcome, but warnings to be heeded. We are standing on the precipice of a new age, ready to dive in with our eyes wide open, armed with the most powerful tools our species has ever created. We are ready to demand answers from the abyss. But before we turn that final key, before we switch on the lights that will banish the shadows forever, we should pause and ask ourselves one last question. When we finally see everything that hides in the dark, will we be looking at a new world to conquer, or will we be looking at the thing that conquers us?